All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for taking that quick break. I know it feels like it's even quicker if we could just get thumbs up, some kind of emoji, something to know that you are back with us. And please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. I am going to turn this over now to our panelists, let them introduce themselves and share whatever they would like to share about the screening. I love this as like the third or fourth time I've watched the documentary, and it still just makes me cry. It's so powerful, the work that Boys Town does, and I really just want to thank you all for bringing this to life and putting this on film for all of us. So Josh, Lisa, Patrick, I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks. So we have Patrick Tyler here from Boys Town, and then Lisa Saby, who is also my mom. We made this film together. So I'm just gonna start by asking everyone to put in the chat just sort of what you feel like the takeaways are from the film. And then I'm gonna give my takeaway, and I want Lisa and Patrick to sort of give yours just briefly. And to me, it's a film really that deals with blame. And I see it in two ways. One in which, as a society, we've deflected blame by seeing criminals as bad people, right, and seeing the problem being their moral deficiency instead of the problem being something that's actually fixable, like skill deficit. The other way we blame people is often actually in therapy, where we're trying to find the problem, the cause of all this. And oftentimes that goes to blaming parents. It's like, well, you had a bad mom or you had a bad dad. And that might be true in some instances, but oftentimes that blame actually gets us away from fixing the problem or dealing with it in any concrete ways, such as teaching skills. So to me, it's a really discussion on blame. Let's go over to Lisa and then Patrick.
Well, and along with blame, I think it goes a discussion of adverse childhood experiences that we're not understanding how complex a child's life was that brought them to the point of doing crime. We're not understanding why they're doing crime. I love when Montana says that the reason why he does it is steals money or things at stores is because he doesn't want to ask his mom for money because his mom has a low paying job. And I just think that's a takeaway for me is that the stories, the adverse childhood experiences are very real and they're impactful.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Patrick Tyler. I'm the Senior Director of the Child and Family Translational Research Center at Boys Town. I've been at Boys Town 22 years. I actually spent the first half of my career here as a clinical director, overseeing some of the homes that you just saw in the documentary, and then spent the second half of my time here working in research to try and figure out how we can kind of better improve the quality of our programs, improve those outcomes, and really understand kind of what the essence is that helps kids and families that receive our services. So I appreciate all the comments that were left in the chat, and kind of happy to take any questions anybody might have.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so now if everyone could just throw your questions in the chat, I think that'll be the easiest way to go about this. And I'll field some questions. And then just so everyone knows, while you're formulating your questions and putting them in the chat, if you are some people asked about screening the film. If you're wanting to screen the film, you can do email me at js@mattersmedia.org. I can put that right here. Just put in the chat. So email me and we can set up screenings. Screenings can be free. So if you have an organization that you want to screen the film in, just reach out and we can figure that out. So do we have any questions? I guess you can raise your hand too, because I don't see any chat questions yet. Someone wants to raise their hand.
Yeah, we can raise our hand and come off mute if you would rather do that instead of typing. I think, Josh, to go back to one of the questions that was in the chat earlier is, how important do you think a belief in a higher power or a faith-based approach is to rehabilitation? And Patrick, since you've been at Boys Town for so long, and now you do the research part to it, I'd be really interested in hearing your response to that.
Sure. So the first thing you saw is that, Boys Town was started by Father Flanagan, who was a Catholic priest. But when Father started Boys Town, he did it for kids of all faiths, creeds, and races. And he wanted to make sure that every boy learned how to pray, but how they prayed was up to them. And we continue that to this very day. And so we actually, on our square mile here, have two churches, two Christian churches. We have a Protestant church and a Catholic church, but our Muslim kids go to mosque, which is just catty corner from our campus, and our Jewish kids go to synagogue. So we know that that's a very important part of the kids healing and getting better. In the research that we've done, especially for our minority youth, our African American youth, Hispanic youth, and American Indian youth, faith is one of the strongest protective factors that they come to Boys Town with. And so we want to do everything we can to strengthen that. And we see that related to all the good outcomes and all the other protective factors that we're trying to strengthen while we're here. So yeah, that's a very good insight and a very important thing that we're working on here.
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple questions. Oh, we got one in here. Let's see. Oh, maybe not. I thought we had a question. Oh yeah, who funds Boys Town? Sorry, there it is. So talk to us about how Boys Town gets its funding, because it does have, having been there several times, it has funding, and they do really impressive research. They get funding for the research they do, not just for helping the children, but also for researching it and developing models and things. So Patrick, could you talk a little bit about funding?
Sure. Yeah. And Josh explained that very well. So we are a charitable organization. We're a 501c3. So we rely heavily on donations. And then for the research that we do, a lot of that is from grants. So we apply for a lot of federal grants and foundation grants. And then we do have contracts for some of our services that pay for a portion of the service, but a lot of it's offset through generous donations.
And Dr. Tyler, could you also tell them about Common Sense Parenting and how you work with parents throughout the whole thing? In interacting with people who are interested in screening the film, that's one of their questions that they've asked me is, how are the families connecting with the boys as they are at Boys Town, and girls, because Boys Town has both boys and girls?
Correct. Yeah. So Boys Town, we're 2/3 boys, 1/3 girls. We're most known for this residential campus, but today only 5% of our services are provided in terms of residential services. 95% are community-based and school-based services. So we have a whole service array, all based on the same model, the same philosophy, which is based on applied behavior analysis and social learning theory. And so as Lisa mentioned, Common Sense Parenting is our parent training program. It's an evidence-based parent training program. It's on the Prevention Services Clearinghouse and the California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse. And so all of the parents are provided Common Sense Parenting while their children are here in our residential program. And then we use that as a common language so that our family teachers, you saw the McClures in the film, so that our family teachers can communicate with the parents of our youth to be able to use the same type of strategies that we're using in the program. The parents then can use that in their home as well. So we're focused a lot on positive reinforcement, trying to catch kids being good, trying to reinforce those pro-social skills that are going to help them get better, and then helping them kind of address those maladaptive behaviors and correct those with replacement behaviors. So we're trying to teach the parents the same set of skills so that there's continuity. So when the youth goes back home, the parents are using some of the same techniques that the family teachers use here. And we find that if the same approach is taken by the adults in multiple environments, the youth are more likely then to continue those skills and generalize those in the new environments. Our school-based services are set up the same way. So we're teaching our teachers how to use those same skills. The schools that we're in, we're doing teacher training in, we're also doing the same thing again so that we can increase the number of environments that the kids are going to get those same types of approaches to reinforce those positive behaviors.
Patrick, there's a lot of questions that I think are just for you. So I
There's
don't know if you
one-
can read them on the
no,
chat box.
I'll present them.
Yeah,
So,
thank you,
Okay.
Josh. That would help.
yeah, just opening up about a little more about how you deal with mental health issues there. And I'll speak a little bit because having been there several times, what sticks out to me, and you spoke to this, Patrick, with talking about continuity. Like there are the parents in the home. They're not called parents. What are they called? Parent teachers or
Family teachers.
Family teachers.
Yep.
They don't call them parents. Okay, family teachers. And then there's the school teachers and there's the sport coaches, and they're all using the same model. So it's not like they go into a different area and they start using different words, different, point systems or whatever. They use the same models. They all are trained on it. And so the kids are sort of obsessively taught these skills in all these different contexts. And that's what I guess really struck out to me, is how they were able to create that continuity for the kids. And then the next, the big bridge is to the house, where you're able to continue it back into their, into their neighborhoods. So that is one thing. And it's really a behavioralist approach. So I know they do have therapy there. They do
Correct.
therapy. They do family therapy. Josh talks about going to family therapy. We never witnessed a therapy session, probably weren't invited. But what really stood out to me was the behavioral approach, that it really focused on behaviors and on skills. But you talk to me about just sort of the different ways that you guys deal with like mental illness at Boys Town.
Yep. So that's where our continuum of services comes in. So we do have, licensed therapists that are able to provide those services outside of the home. Our family teachers are not licensed therapists. They're not trained to do mental health therapy. They're trained to teach skills. And so when our youth come in, we do a functional assessment to find out what skills are going to be most impactful to address what their needs are. So our family teachers then are going to use social skills that are going to increase protective factors and reduce risk factors. That's where kind of our research comes in, as we are able to identify, okay, what skills are most impactful on different types of risks, and how do we then promote protective factors? We find that problem solving, and you would have seen some of the boys talking about problem solving and decision making. So we have an acronym called SOTAs, which is situations, option, disadvantages, advantages, solutions. So we teach kids how to do SOTAs to make good decisions. We find that the more kids use that problem solving strategy, the less trauma symptoms and emotional distress they have related to trauma in the program. We focus on helping the kids learn peer relation skills, how to make good friends, how to deal with peer pressure. We find that that weakens the relationship between trauma symptoms and suicide ideation. And then obviously you saw some examples of some aggression and some violence in the documentary. And for that, what we find is that teaching kids how to resolve conflicts, how to tolerate differences, how to make moral decisions actually reduces violent and aggressive behavior. So within the home, you have skills that are targeting specific symptomology, but then our family teachers aren't going to get into helping kids, recover from some of the trauma that they've been exposed to. That's when we're going to have our clinical services, our licensed mental health therapists address those issues outside of the home. But then they're going to work with the youth to identify the skills that they can use within the home, again, to strengthen those protective factors. So that's how that kind of works back and forth. The therapy session is typically 1 hour a week. The rest of the healing, the rest of the treatment occurs in the home and the schools and the activities that our kids are involved in. So we want to make sure they have the skills to be able to continue to strengthen what they're learning in therapy.
Could you repeat what SOTA stands for just real fast?
Sure, it's an acronym. It's situation. So the kids identify what the situation is. They look at their options, that's the O. They identify the disadvantages to those options, which is the D. They look at the advantages to those options, which is the A. And then they come up with their solution. And so we're teaching that proactively in the homes. When the youth engage in misbehavior, oftentimes that's going to be a consequence, is they have to look at what they did, and then they identify through the steps of the SOTAs what they could have done differently. And so that's how we're teaching them some of those replacement behaviors when they act out.
And so how do you get buy-in from the boys and girls at Boys Town? A lot of them show up and they think these rules are stupid. What's that transition like? How do you get buy-in?
Yep. So, it helps that our entire campus culture is bought in. And so we're just using positive peer pressure, right? So we know that if in a residential program, if it's not run correctly, you get what's called peer contagion or iatrogenic effect. If you put kids that are misbehaving together with other kids that are misbehaving, they're going to misbehave even more. we've been able to establish a culture where we have more positive influence than negative influence. And so if we can maintain that balance, then the kids will start to adapt to what those expectations are. Obviously, based on where some of the kids have come from, you know, having a point card is not a normal situation. Getting a point consequence for misbehavior is not typical. But through the repetition and teaching them the value of those skills, the relationship that they have with their family teachers, the relationships that they establish with their housemates in the homes, creating that family environment, that's what gets them bought in. We create contrast from the environments that they're coming from. Because a lot of the kids are coming from violent communities, violent neighborhoods. We tell the kids we're not taking them from their families, we're just providing them another family environment. And then we work with their family to try and give them opportunities that they didn't have where they came from. We look at, so we use the Child Opportunity Index. And so we're also looking at community resilience to say, okay, where are our kids coming from and how do we provide contrast in that community? You know, a lot of our kids are coming from communities that are in the bottom third in terms of resilience. And so in terms of housing, you know, environmental safety, healthcare, education. So when they come into Boys Town, we're making sure they have all the advantages that they would have if they were in an affluent community. And then we get them involved in all the school activities that any other kid out in the community would be involved in, but they haven't had an opportunity to be involved in, maybe because there was more peer pressure in the other direction to not be involved in some of those school activities. And you saw plenty of example on that with the kids being involved in track and football and other things. So that's how we get them bought in, is we give them opportunities and then we reinforce the kids for being involved in that. And then they start to experience the positive peer influence, right? The recognition that they get from their peers for engaging in those things that make them feel good about themselves, give them purpose, and they start to be able to identify with something new.
So I'm gonna ask one more question from the chat and then I have one more question, but how do we know that Boys Town is successful? Like, how do we know it's a good intervention? Like how do you track that? Why should we have confidence in the model?
Yeah, because we invest a lot in data collection. So we do a lot of routine data collection while the kids are here to be able to monitor their progress day to day. And then to be able to intervene when a youth is off track or when a program's off track. And so we invest in a lot of what's called implementation science, making sure that our program is implemented correctly and that the outcomes are monitored in real time so that our staff can respond to those. And then we invest a lot in, you know, kind of those outcomes and tracking those outcomes. And so we can see, you know, how the kids started, how they finished the program, and then we look at how they do after they've left, for those long-term kind of outcomes. You saw at the end of the clip, you know, Successful Futures. So we actually have 2 aftercare programs because one of the biggest challenges we've faced since Father Flanagan started Boys Town is how do you sustain the gains that the kids made when they're at Boys Town? We know they do well while they're here, but we know that they're going to face a lot of challenges when they leave. We know with most residential programs, 50 to 75% of kids are going to return back to jail or another residential program within 6 months of leaving the residential program. With our aftercare program, so we have 2. One's called On the Way Home. It's also on the Title IV Prevention Services Clearinghouse and the California Clearinghouse. That helps the kids when they leave Boys Town before they've graduated high school. And we know that if they get 12 months of aftercare and On the Way Home, that 75 to 80% of them are still going to be at home and still going to be at school 12 months after they leave Boys Town. For our youth that graduated, like you saw in the video, we have Successful Futures. And so that's where we're identifying some of those challenges they're going to face as they're transitioning into adulthood. And then we're providing proactive support to them to address some of those challenges, whether it's transportation, housing. We're helping them get connected to good employment. If they've got any health issues, we're helping them get connected to that. And so all of that comes from the data that continues to come back into our program, because we are kind of perfectionists. We want to make sure that we help every kid, every family the best way we can. So as real as this documentary was, I can tell you it's legit, but we just go through it and we see all the areas where we could have done better. And so that's what we invest in with our data collection. because we want all of our kids and families to be successful.
I do want to ask this last question because I actually don't know the answer. Is there a maximum time that kids can stay at Boys Town?
So depending on their age, the age of majority and the state that they come from. So typically it's either 18 or 19. But for kids that come younger, a lot of it's going to depend on what the situation is based on where they were referred from. So, the kids can stay up to graduation or age of majority. We do get kids that are younger because they have nowhere else to go. It may be a grandparent that can't take care of them anymore. And so we will have kids that can be here for 4 or 5 years. But after graduation, then we're going to link them into some of the other community-based services.
Patrick, I just want you to also answer, what do you do with schools across the nation? You're not just working with your own organization, you're actually trying to help schools too. Can you talk to that?
Yep. Yeah. So we're training tens of thousands of teachers throughout the country in what we call well-managed schools. And so that's our curriculum where we're doing all the teacher training. So a lot of the skills teaching that you saw the family teachers doing, we're teaching teachers how to teach and reinforce those skills for their students in the classroom. That program is currently under 2 randomized controlled trials, one with Iowa State University and one being done here in the state of Nebraska. And so we're anxious to see the results of that and hoping that that too will be on one of the clearinghouses. But that's how we get kind of that technology out into our schools. We also have a program that's called Lift with Boys Town at a variety of our sites. So we're in Nevada, Rhode Island, Florida, Louisiana, and that's where we have school support specialists. So these are staff that are embedded within the schools. They're Boys Town staff, but they're embedded within the schools that can provide support to the students and the families. So if you're familiar with multi-tiered system of supports, it's our staff that are doing that, but it's connecting to the families as well. So if a student needs skills training to address an office referral or behavioral problem, our staff are teaching that youth those skills. And then if the family has identified needs, then that same staff person is getting them connected either to our common sense parenting or our in-home family services so that the family is also getting support for them and the student. And then that's occurring within the culture of the school that's using our well-managed schools curriculum. So we have that at a variety of our sites. In Arizona as well, we use well-managed schools in some of our schools down there in Arizona.
Awesome. So yeah, just wrapping up. It seems like a lot of people here are, what's it called? Court-appointed special advocates, CASAs. I'm not sure that's in every state, but it's in Arizona and some other states. Do you have a message to them, both Lisa, Patrick? Like, I guess I'm thinking this is connected to the court system, right? What would be the message? I think what they do, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're sort of, I think, an individual who's given sort of responsibility over some cases to give their input on what is best for the child. But they're not necessarily a master's degree in something. They're just an individual with a passion for helping children, I think.
Yeah, they're advocates for them. Yeah.
So
we work with a lot of CASAs here at Boys Town, and boy, oh boy, do we appreciate the support that our CASAs provide our youth and us, because it makes such a difference for that kid to have the support from you to be able to help them advocate for themselves, and just provide that sense of belonging. That, mentorship also that you provide the youth goes a long way. And to be able to just, a lot of our kids have a hard time in court expressing themselves, their families do too. And to be able to give them a voice and articulate some of their needs, we can't thank you enough. So I didn't know that's what this audience was, but thank you.
Well, it's not the whole audience, but several people mentioned that they were. And Lisa, do you have any comments on?
When I look through what work they are doing, I just wanted to honor everybody here, and that you came to watch this film and that you're still here. Just says something about your heart and your commitment, and just thank you.
Yeah, and I think my message, just because my biggest concern with this movie that we made was we really didn't want to blame the parents. I feel like we've done that too much. And one of our missions is really trying not to blame parents. Trauma often begets trauma. And and I can just speak. So you know Portia, she's in the film, one of the main characters. She starts out the film cooking. I went to her house, and I don't know, they definitely live in sort of a ghetto. But you know, they had bows on the towels in their bathroom. It was a much cleaner place than my apartment. And we keep ours pretty clean. We're not, but like, you know, she was not perfect. She had done illegal things. She had spent some time in prison, but she was really trying to be a good mom. And even for the more extreme cases you saw in the film, it was amazing their desires. They really do want to be parents. And maybe that's not possible in every situation, but as often as possible, I strongly believe that we want to keep kids connected to their family for two reasons. One of which is because there's like genetic and all sorts of things there that you can't replace. And the second one is just practical. So Jose, for example, in the film, his mom was probably the most extreme case we had, drugs, all the things. And who knows what is possible in that future for that relationship, but it's gonna be there as long as they're alive. Even if the court, which the court has done, has tried to separate them and not let them be engaged, they're still connected. And it's really almost impossible to sever these relationships. And so rather than trying to just think that we can take someone and put them in a better family, most of the time I feel strongly that we need to try to help families that already exist imperfectly as they do, and help them, you know, get their feet under them, and succeed with their children, because that family's there and it's not going to be severed most of the time.
And I'll just add to that about what Boys Town does with the family teachers. They don't call them mom and dad, because they want to honor the biological mom and dad, or the guardian, whoever is the mom and dad. And but they do want to give them a model of two people married, and that they can work through issues and work together, and having that model along with continually connecting with their real moms and dads is just a powerful addition in their support of what they could do in creating an idea of what they want in their own future. They have seen good marriages. They have seen partnership that works.
Yeah. Thank you so
Angela.
much. Thank you so much, too, for, that was one of the reasons, as people who know me know, I'm quite critical of a lot of issues when it comes to how we are having the conversations around trauma, and how we are having the conversations around adults in children's lives and protective factors and all of those pieces, because nobody wakes up one day and says, you know what, I really just want to be a crappy parent and I don't want my kid to succeed. That's not what they do, right? Like, we all do the best we can with the tools that we have in that moment. And it does take a village. And anyone who's been in my trainings will know that I say that adults are just children who've turned 18. And without mitigation and without treatment and supports around them, we are going to continually do what we have developed as children as coping mechanisms, whether they're maladaptive, adaptive, whatever that looks like, right, in our lives. And so I really like that you didn't blame the parents, because so many ways go to that, and understanding that we are all a system, right? We are all a community, and we all have our own role to play within that community. Sometimes we do have to be removed from that, family system, and being modeled in ways of how we can do things a little bit differently, right? And then knowing that we do end up going back into that same systems. And so if we don't support that system that's at home, right, and help them learn those same things, we're not setting that child up for success, right? We're setting that whole entire family up for failure. And so I really appreciated Boys Town's full encompassing model, which not a lot of places, have that piece. And I know that we could talk about this for probably hours more. We do have 1 minute left. One of the things I do want to mention in the chat, just for Arizona, we had a few mentions of Canyon State. And we do have some residential facilities in our state. The consortium is currently working with Desert Lily, which is the female version of Canyon State, in bringing our trauma-informed training to their staff, and also our teen stress and resilience program to their teen. And we are working on being able to train and support Canyon State next. So that is in the works. Patrick, Lisa, Josh, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. In my follow-up email to everyone, I will make sure to have Josh's email in there, so that if you would like to bring a showing of Boys Town to your organization and your community, that you are able to do that. And thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your work.
Thank you.
You.